Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What with Dan and Julie. Today we've got Steph on, who is well known as Baked by Steph on Instagram. Hi, Steph.
Hello. Hey, guys.
How are we?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Just finished a very busy day at work. Got a nice glass of wine in my hand, ready to have a little
chat. No dry jam for you then?
Well, no, not when you're doing that work. No such thing.
So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what you actually do, Steph?
Yeah, sure. Hard to put into words in a nice succinct sentence, but I'll give it a go. I own and run a company called Baked by Steph. Clue is in the title. We're a very bespoke small bakery based in London. And we specialize in kind of hand-iced cookies and all sorts of wonderful treats that are, call me biased, I would like to say quite spectacular and really stand out. And yeah, it's essentially an e-commerce driven bakery. That's how I like to describe it.
Mm-hmm. So why did you get into baking? Where did it sort of come from, the love of it?
Wow. I mean, quite frankly, it was quite a bizarre journey to get here. I never set out to become a baker, if I'm perfectly honest. I actually set out in a completely different path to work in the fashion industry, and completely found myself here by accident. But in a lovely way. I've always been a very creative person. I studied fine art and fashion at university and started to forge a path within the fashion industry as a career, but ultimately just always found myself not super content with my work life. Can't really put a finger on it, just, that niggling feeling. And started baking as a hobby, I guess, stress relief, just something on the side for fun. And this was only maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And then before I knew it, it just became my full-time passion. It took up every second of every day where I wasn't working in my full-time job. And it just took over, really. I was thinking about it all the time. I was really enjoying it. And I started this Instagram account, Baked by Steph, hence the name. Not a lot of thought went into the marketing. It really was just a hobby account on Instagram. And it was really just a place for me to get creative and, I guess, share it with people. And the more I shared, it seemed the more that people liked it, wanted to see more. And I never set out with the intention of making it a business, but quite quickly, I really started to understand that concept of making your passion your career. It seemed possible all of a sudden, and so that was my stepping stone, I guess, that got me to this point.
So looking at your Instagram, and I assume that's very much what your bakery shop does, and you've already sort of said you do very delicate art style cookies. How did you get into doing those? That's quite a unique thing in baking, I would say.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it just really comes back. So I start from the design, not from the recipe. I think that's kind of my approach to baking, which is maybe a bit backwards for some bakers. I guess it comes from my art background. When I got into baking, it was very much a case of, I literally one day I was just like, what if I made a cookie but it looked like a shoe? Right? I don't know. I didn't start with, I wanted to be chocolate chip. I wanted to be this flavor. It was just like, let's start with the design and work backwards from there. And that's very much my approach to everything I design for the business. So yeah, and my intention has always been to create stuff that people really go, oh my gosh, I need to take a picture of this for Instagram. This is so cool. So that's actually the starting point for everything we create and we design. And that's where it all began, really. And I think that is what just makes it stand out.
I think you're a really good example of how the world of social media and this kind of new e-commerce world has allowed people like you, with, like you say, with your arts background and your sort of creative background, to then take that skill and apply it to something, and you've created a business, which is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. I can't even begin to put into words how important and fundamental Instagram and Facebook and just the digital aspects of our business have been in terms of driving not just sales, but also just awareness of the brand. It's completely been organic thus far. And it has just all been through Instagram, really, which is incredible. And yeah, we definitely utilize that. It's at the forefront of everything we do. It kind of starts there and we work backwards from there.
How was it to become a business owner? Was it quite a hard leap, or did it sort of just happen kind of naturally for you?
Oh, so hard. So hard and so natural, if I can be lazy and say both.
Yeah.
Because I think, for me, there was that really tough few months where so I used to work in digital project management, and I just got a promotion. I was a project director, and I really wanted to prove myself and, really do my best for the company I was working at the time. And obviously when you get a promotion, you want to put in all your time and stay there late and work early. But at the same time, this whole Bake by Steph thing was kicking off in my downtime. And I was already working till, 1, 2, 3, 4 a.m. and then getting up at 7 to get into my main job. And
Wow.
I was honestly, I wasn't well, if I'm honest. And it's kind of that really hard position of, I feel like I know what I want to do, but how do I get the courage to take that leap? And I'm sure a lot of business owners would agree. There's kind of this point where you're like waiting for the perfect moment. You're like, oh, well, if I just get this much in my savings account, or if I just get to this many kind of customers on the side or whatever. And the truth is, it doesn't work that way. Definitely always sensible to consider those things and to have backups and safety plans, et cetera, but ultimately I ended up taking the plunge because I got really ill from just working so much.
Yeah.
And I was forced to make a decision, and it was someone asking me, are you gonna give up Bake by Steph, or are you gonna give up the full-time job? And I was like, well, there's no option there. I'm not giving up Bake by Steph. Like, this is what I want to do. And therein lay the answer that I'd struggled to find for so many months. But it was a really tough decision. There's a lot of uncertainty when you start up your own business. You're signing up for no holidays. There's no sick pay if you get ill. There's no guarantee it's going to succeed. It's just a big kind of black hole laying in front of you. But if it's the thing you want to do, it's actually a very exciting thing overall. It's probably one of the scariest and most exciting times in my life, looking back.
Would you say, I think a lot of people now are looking at, the e-commerce world and opportunities in front of them and saying, do I need to get a career, or can I just start something on the side? And I don't know if you'd agree, but I think definitely for me, when you're starting something, 25% of the time you're buzzing and it's so exciting. 75% of the time you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? How am I going to earn money from this kind of thing?
Oh my God, I'd throw it back at you that it's like 90% of the time.
Yeah. Oh, it's I won't be 75, but yeah, you're probably right.
But it's so worth it for that 10%. You live for that 10%. Yeah. It's totally worth it. But yes, this is not for the faint-hearted. Everything lays on your shoulders. And especially when you start to employ staff and grow and scale up, the responsibilities get really real, really fast. So, you need to make sure you're prepared for that and have fully confronted that and sat with it and understood it, and, just accept that's going to be the life you're signing up for, I guess.
Because that's one of the things, you've gone into this industry because you had a passion and a love for baking. Yeah. But obviously becoming a business owner, there's so many other things, aspects, skills that you have to do, learn and understand to have that little 10% of enjoying baking. What were some of the things that you was not expecting, and any skills that maybe you had to develop to become that business owner?
Yeah, such an important question. Often when your career, I guess, starts with a passion, there might be kind of this dream scenario in which you're just going to be doing your passion all day, every day. And that is not how it works, unfortunately. Get used to doing taxes, get used to reconciling your bank account, get used to, when you start to hire staff, dealing with someone not showing up because they're sick and having to fill in, no day will ever go as you planned it. And that is probably the most true thing I could say as a small business owner. And for me, I think inherently and fundamentally, I'm a creative person. That's where it all started from. And there are certain qualities that come with being a creative. Like, I'm maybe not the most naturally organized or the most, I'm a bit all over the place, in general as a human being, but I'm very lucky that the career path that I took prior to this was in project management. So whilst my natural, my innate way of being isn't necessarily that organized, I learned those skills, and those skills have served me so well in running a business. I think being organized is just the most key thing that I've found is important, that I maybe hadn't quite anticipated how important a role that would play. But yeah, if I'm perfectly honest, I very rarely bake anymore. The only baking I really do is, so I come up with all the designs and the ideas. I'll create samples for those that I will then teach or show to the team, who will recreate them. And then I also create content for Instagram and YouTube. So that's where my baking comes on. I really cherish that time, but really, honestly speaking, as a business owner, that's not what I do. What I do is sit in front of a laptop all day and manage a business.
We've actually been talking to a few people recently who've got small businesses or small to medium sized businesses, and the content creation side on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all the socials. How did you find first getting in front of a camera and trying to come up with content and ways to market it? Was that difficult for you, or did you enjoy that?
Okay, in terms of the actual getting in front of a camera part, please nobody do this, but if you went back to my first video, you would see such a difference compared to the most recent one. Like, that is hard. I'm sorry, for anybody as a human being, that's a hard thing to do. But I'm lucky, I guess, because the social media side of it is my favorite part of it, really. Because it started there for me, I didn't start with a business plan. I started with an Instagram account. And so I'm very lucky that that's kind of my sanctuary. And that's good, because that is also what drives our sales. So it's great for me. And we have such a lovely following, and such an our followers are really engaged with the brand as well, which just makes it such a nice place to be virtually. So yeah, I haven't struggled with that too much. I'm also very lucky that what we do lends itself so well to Instagram's platform, because it's so aesthetically driven. So there's not a lot of hard work in terms of, selling the image, because it sells itself. What we do is aesthetically driven,
So you've obviously spoken a little bit about no day's the same. However, if you could potentially break some of your average days down, what would they involve?
Yeah, sure. I mean, no day's the same, but here's how an ideal day would go. Never goes away.
Maybe we'll do the other end, actually.
Well, no. So typically, so just to give a bit of context in terms of the size of the team and who else is kind of playing in this court, we've got a team of 9 at the minute, and within that team there's me, there's a production manager, and then we have our baking team who literally bake the cookies and come up with all the macaron recipes and all the rest of that, and then we have our creative team who actually decorate all of the cookies and all that fantastic stuff you see on Instagram. And then we have our, I want to say e-commerce team, it's one person, but we'll call her a team. So any average day always starts with a team meeting. Tuesday to Friday, that's, 5 to 10 minutes. Monday, it's a bit more in depth. And the key thing with our industry with baking is preparation and planning. It doesn't work unless you're very well prepared and planning really far ahead, which is where our production manager comes in. It's her job to really oversee all that and feed back to me in terms of where we're at, in terms of targets and timelines and the plan for the day. For me, then I'll kind of go upstairs to the upstairs office away from the bakery, sit in front of my laptop the rest of the day, and that will involve everything from customer service. Like I said, we're e-commerce driven, but we're still a small team. It is me and the e-commerce assistant answering all emails, getting back to all of our lovely followers' questions. It will also involve a lot of design work. I try to keep that to 1 day a week. So I like to have a creative day where I literally said, everyone, don't contact me. I'm in a creative zone. I need that kind of, not to go off on a tangent here, but in terms of approaching any kind of creative role, I don't think you can really slot it into a 2-hour slot in the week. You need to allow yourself a full day to really get your head around it and come up with ideas and feel inspired. So there's always a day of the week where I just dedicate to that, and I don't look at emails, or I do answer the team's questions. I'm not that horrible, but I kind of cut myself off from the rest of the world. But every day is a different thing, whether I'm looking at our packaging and reconsidering that, whether I'm contacting suppliers, negotiating deals, trying to get contracts, from the sales side of things, maintaining targets. We're very target driven in terms of our sales, and also at the back of my head's always, how are we going to scale up? So I was always thinking to the bigger picture and trying not to get bogged down in the day-to-day tasks. And then there's always that day where I just have to do all the accounting, which is my least favorite day. It's a real mixed bag. But I love it. It's actually, I definitely enjoy the varied aspect. Certainly there are days where you come in with a plan and then you almost have to laugh, otherwise you cry because the plan just goes out the window. But overall, I'm really lucky that 2 days are the same, and I think that's really exciting.
So for those listening and that might be at school or university, and thinking of, maybe one day they'll have their own business, is there anything at school, university you kind of focused on? Obviously you're creative. Did you do kind of arts, or was there anything that you kind of made sure you're always doing something creative to keep that side going?
Yeah, so throughout school, art has always focused in my studies from school to university. I did art GCSE A level and ultimately went on to study fine art and then fashion at university. And that has been, I guess, at the core of every job I did since university. So whether it was in the fashion, I worked in the fashion industry for a few years. That was actually always my intention. That's where I wanted to go. And ultimately realized it wasn't quite for me. Then I went and did project management for a digital design company. So art still played a part there. The creative aspect was still there, although I wasn't actively creating, I was managing, but there was the core of the job was creative. And then, yes, ultimately that's led to this, I don't know what we call this, this new era in my life where I am not only managing a business, but also really drawing on my creative skills, which makes me very, very happy. In terms of anyone who's studying, right, I mean, my path here has been, it was not planned out. And I think I was always one of those people that wasn't sure where I fit in or what I ultimately wanted to do. And I think that's quite hard to go through life. I don't think I realized how much it affected me until I found the thing I wanted to do. And I think it's really important to just be okay with that. If I could go back and just like give myself a little tap on the shoulder and be like, it's fine, you'll figure it out. It's really about a process and not about looking at an end goal. For me, that was my experience. I always thought you needed to think about the job you wanted to do and then work towards it. And for some people, that's obviously worked really, really well. But for me, that's not how my success came about. It was very much, the journey was the most important part for me, trying all these different things, going off on these different tangents, having those moments in life where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where is this going? But it's that here. And that's a really positive thing. So yeah, the creative part was always there, but the whole journey in itself is ultimately what's got me here and trying all the different things.
I think that's actually a massively important point, isn't it? I think a lot of people, definitely young people now, are like, oh, well, God, what am I going to do with my life? What career? And it doesn't really work like that. I think there's maybe two camps of people who actually know exactly what they want to do and go through school and university and end up being an engineer like Jules or a vet or something. But for the other half, it's kind of, you just have to go and try stuff.
100%. And I think, also just if you could learn from a young age, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but if you could learn from a young age to really trust your instincts. I don't think I understood really what that meant until I turned 30. But trusting your instincts, really trusting that inner voice, like figuring out what that means and trusting it. Oh, I wish I'd known that from a younger age. If you really just go with your instincts and where that leads you, that's a really powerful thing. But so often we're just, especially when you're younger, you're just kind of looking for someone to tell you it's going to be okay, or do this, point you in certain directions. Sure, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, fantastic. That's probably a good thing that you have that decision at a young age. But the truth is, there's so many jobs out there. So many jobs.
So many.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I even realized until this year how many jobs there were.
Well, I mean, same. Since we've been doing this, we're like, oh, you can do that? Okay.
Yeah. And I think as well, so another important thing that's worth mentioning is I'm now hiring people quite a lot at the minute. We're scaling up quite rapidly. And it's only when you're on the other side, like interviewing people, that you start to realize that all the things you're maybe taught. I'm not telling anybody who's listening not to listen to their elders right now, or people at school, like listen, but you're not necessarily looking for those on paper qualities. So much about the hiring process is about the personality sitting in front of you, the interaction you have as human beings. I don't necessarily, I mean, just to give it some real context, I don't always hire someone with baking experience. I often, especially when it comes to the cookie creative roles, what will ultimately kind of sell it to me is a attitude and personality, but also a creative aspect. And that's a different, you wouldn't maybe expect that when you're going into a bakery or baking led role. And I think we get so caught up when we're younger, don't we, in terms of thinking about, oh, if I tick this box and if I tick that box, and you're a completely unique individual, and every person hiring, is looking for something a bit different, I think.
That's such a good point about interviews. I think a lot of people go into it thinking, oh God, maybe I don't have the right qualifications, or I haven't done this before. But if you go in and kind of prove that maybe you've tried something before you've got there, maybe you've gone and sat at an industry exam, or you've done something on the side that shows you're interested in this, and you're friendly, that's like 90% of the battle.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more. I literally, so much rides on the in-person interview, I think, rather than, I mean, obviously there are practicalities. You need to get your CV in through the door and stand out in some way. But the amount of times I've surprised myself in the hire that I've made at the last minute because of a connection in an interview. There's a lot to be said for that. And I think and that boils down to ultimately coming in and, being confident and knowing yourself, really.
I mean, that leads on quite nicely actually to what would be some of the personality traits that you've seen yourself that you think have helped you get to where you are now?
Well, a lot of not great ones, but that's a good one. One thing I've actually learned only in the past couple of years, and I think this is really, really big with baking in general. I am at my core a perfectionist, and that's quite problematic, but is also probably what has really led my creative side. I think that's quite a common trait as well with anyone who works within the creative industries. But you quickly have to learn to throw that out the door when you start working in baking, because, and I say this to my team all the time, you're going to make mistakes. Like, there's no question, you will make mistakes. What we do is so temperamental. If you get the oven temperature 1 degree wrong, or even just dropping something on the floor, like, it will happen. The key quality of this job is not about avoiding making mistakes. It's how you handle it under the pressure. If you make a mistake, can you stay calm? Can you forgive yourself? Can you be like, okay, cool, this was always going to happen. How are you going to handle it? That is the key, the thing you need to unlock in this industry. And I think probably in a lot of industries, really. And that's something I've probably only really learned myself as a grown adult within the past couple of years and having to start a business. It's not about avoiding mistakes or doing everything perfect. It's about dealing with the fact and confronting the fact that you will make the mistakes and just how you handle it.
What are some of the biggest positives and opportunities that you've sort of had out of this? Looking through your Instagram, you've made some cookies for some really quite famous people, some big companies. The business is going really well. So what's some of the biggest positives for you?
Oh, so many. I think yes, 100%. Seeing famous people eating our cookies is a personal little dance in my head going on there. Like, Lily Allen recently got a cookie, and I swear I was like, oh my god, this is so amazing. Cool. If Beyonce is listening, just saying,
I hope she's listening to our podcast. That'd be great.
Could you imagine? Yeah. That'd be amazing. But I think for me, positives have really been around team elements, watching the team grow and getting to work as a team, and getting to see that we've built something that allows a team to work together. And also days where I'm seeing the team work completely fine without me, and I'm like, oh, do you guys need me here? But yeah, they're the really standout moments for me. We recently did an order. So to give you some context, we're 9 people. We're not super small, but we're not by any means big. We're a tiny boutique bakery, and we recently took on a 10,000 cookie order. I can say it's for Tiffany & Co. because it's on Instagram now. It was for Tiffany & Co. for their Christmas
cool.
gifting. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I was like, oh, can we take this on? But we did, and we absolutely nailed it. And I think looking back on orders like that, where it's maybe not so much who it was for, but more the work, the accomplishment of it all really just stands out for me. That's just feel so proud about stuff like that.
And on the flip side, what would be some of the biggest negatives that you've discovered in the industry?
I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier in terms of just things going wrong. That is something that you can't get away from in this industry. It's science-led really in terms of the baking side of things. And if anything goes wrong, it can really set you back. So ultimately we are a deadline-driven company, especially when we do bespoke orders. There is an event that we're ultimately working towards, or a giveaway or something along those lines. So there's a hard date, set in stone. So there's a lot of pressures. It can get stressful. There are the lovely days and there are the stressful days, especially in the run up to Christmas. It's quite seasonal as well. So yeah, I think in terms of negatives, it's just that side of things, naturally, as with any industry, is always going to push you a little bit. But if it's what you love to do, then it's not so bad.
So baking's kind of exploded in the last few years, really, isn't it? Like with things like the Great British Bake Off, and then lockdown, everyone was making sourdough bread. Has that kind of helped your business, or how's that been for you?
Yeah, great question, and very on the nose. We have definitely seen an increase in sales. I don't want to say thanks to COVID. That's not, no one is thanking COVID. Nobody dare thanks COVID. But obviously we are seeing a lot of people, not being able to unfortunately see their loved ones or spend time with people that they want to spend time with. And they're looking for interesting gifts that they can send. And the beauty of what we do is it can be sent through the post. It can fit through your letterbox, and it definitely puts a smile on people's faces. And my favorite product that we actually sell is a custom message box. And I start every morning by just going through the orders that have come through and reading everyone's custom messages. So for example, today, there was a lovely message that just said, "Can't wait to hug you." And we created that in cookies. And there's just been such a shift in terms of sentiment and what people are ordering. And that's been very noticeable. It is driven sales, which is a lovely thing for us, but it's also really nice to know that our cookies, our products are in a very small way connecting people. That is a really nice thing. And we genuinely spend every day talking through the nicest messages that we've received. We receive some pretty crazy ones as well. But,
I bet you do, yeah.
Yeah, I will not dare repeat some of the things that people actually choose to send each other. But,
have you ever said no? Have you ever said no, I'm not doing that?
I mean, we've said no to certain things. We've never said no to like a naughty one or like a rude word or anything. Like, that's fine. If you want to do that, we'll just not put it on Instagram. It's fine. But we do turn down orders. We are actually in quite a nice position where we can pick and choose the custom orders that we take on. Yeah. And that's really nice from a creative perspective. But I would never turn down a rude order. It's too much fun. Brightens up our day.
At this point, we usually talk about sort of average salaries and incomes with people, but having, being a small business, if you're going to start a small business, it will just range massively. It's completely dependent on how much you work, how well your marketing goes, all those kind of factors. So I think if you're going to start a small business, if you agree, don't expect an average income of any sort. It will vary.
Do you mean for yourself?
Just as the business or for yourself, like don't expect to be taking a salary out of a business straight away.
I suppose you don't have to give any numbers, but was there a sort of a time scale you set yourself to be able to be comfortably financially stable going through the process of setting up your business?
So the one thing I would say is it's so funny because obviously I've spent a lot of time in the run up to starting my own business asking for advice and, you know, picking people's brains who've done this before. And the one piece of advice I was always given was always factor in a salary for yourself. And I did that from day one. By no means, you know, I'm not flying off to Barbados or anything, but I think a common, I don't want to say mistake, but a common thing is to set up a business and then rely on whatever the profits are at the end of it as your salary. But obviously you can set yourself up for a really big disappointment there, especially in the first few years of business. Like, you know, you're not going to be buying chandeliers and eating caviar. So from day one, I factored in a monthly salary for myself into our figures and our numbers. And I, you know, that's factored in. There's no, that's what I pay myself. And then obviously if there's anything after that, then that's just the icing on top. But I think that's really important. You know, at the end of the day, you have to value your time as well. And ultimately it's all well and good to start a business because it's your passion, but you have to be realistic about numbers. It's not worth doing it if, you know, you can't pay your rent or you're ultimately in a more difficult position. Businesses will not, no one's expecting a business to go through the roof in the first year, be super successful, but equally you do have to be realistic with the numbers. So I think having that realist approach is really important.
Definitely. And what's the plans going forward then? You're talking about, you know, growing the business and growing the brand. What are you thinking?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, I do know. It's funny though, because it changes all the time. If I'm really, really honest, I get asked that question a lot, and I sometimes wish I could be like, oh, I have a 7-year plan, or who says a 7-year plan, 5-year plan, whatever. And I have it all figured out. And the truth is I don't. And the reason I don't is because every time I make a plan, my business, my team, everything surprises me. You know, every day is different. In terms of where I'd like to be or what I would like to see, I definitely want to see our brand stocked on some shelves somewhere. I won't say where, but in some places.
Yeah,
that's definitely next goal. What? Sorry.
Very cool. That'd be great if you get it into, you know, wherever you're thinking. That's a massive step forward, isn't it?
Massive step forward. It would really kind of put us on the map. But equally, just in terms of focusing on, you know, really looking at the product offering that we have at the minute and just developing that and really improving on it. That's my current goal. That's my active goal at the minute. That's what I'm looking at now that we've come back for 2021. Everything's with fresh eyes. So at the minute, I'm really looking at how can we provide better customer service for our customers? How can we improve the products that we're currently offering? Just how can we make what we're doing right now better? And I think ultimately that's going to grow the business and lead to more success.
And would you still go into the industry knowing everything you know now?
Well, yes. Would I do what I'm doing knowing everything I know now? Absolutely. The truth is, I don't know the industry. I've never worked in this industry before. I've never had a baking job. I've never actively sought this out. So I don't know the industry on the whole. But in this little mini world that I've created, 100%. I'd come back here. I'd choose the stresses of this job every day over the stresses of any other job.
Thank you so much for coming on, Steph. It's been a real pleasure to sort of chat to you and learn all about your business.
Likewise, it's been a real pleasure chatting to you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. Where can people find you on social media as well as your shop and anything else?
You can find our website, bakebysteph.co.uk, and our Instagram, which is probably where you want to check us out more because that's where all the fun stuff is at baked.by.steph. Really annoying. I didn't get the full one about the dots.
Don't worry, we'll put you up on Instagram and we'll tag everything, so don't worry.
But again, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you guys. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steph.
Bye.